Alright, should be recording. Yep, I see the file. Yay! Chapter 8 of the Star Trek Voyage Home. Don't know why my brain froze on that. But yeah, Star Trek Voyage Home novelization. I think I like this a little bit better than the previous chapter, but I'd still say with the whole ebb and flow of the chapters, I'd still say we're kind of flatlined, like the previous one. Not necessarily tilting up. We'll see. We'll see. Starts with Jillian at the Cetacean Institute after getting everyone out. So basically, the place is closed now, and she goes over, and presumably, from how she does this, she regularly will go over to the tank and take her shoes off and dip her feet in. In the movie, it's just she's at the railing, leaning over, talking to George and Gracie. But no, she dips her feet in, and they will actually come over and, brush against them, so clearly expressing familiarity with her. Bob does come over, and also she's, a lot of the lines are very similar to what's in the movie. But Bob comes over, and he also takes off his shoes, rolls up his pants legs so that he can dip his feet in as well. But it is mentioned later that basically they only have that reaction to her. They are only really familiar with her. But it still is. I kind of like this because it shows, not in any kind of romantic sense, but a greater intimacy and familiarity between not only with the whales but with each other, that they are friends, and that this is just a moment there. It's not just, I come over, I lean over, I'm just thinking hey, what? No, it's time spent together. But it is still, he annoys her. Yeah, so actually, I'm going to skip one highlight. Part of the reason why he's so annoying, he never lost his temper. That was one of the reasons he was director, and one of the reasons he made Jillian so mad. You always give me things to think about, Jillian. Why don't you go home early? You sound pretty wrecked. Thanks for the compliment, she said. Come on, you know what I mean. Really, why don't you go home? Stay at the ceiling for a while. So he's trying to get rid of her because he has moved the schedule up for George and Gracie to be moved. Because, and I kind of agree with him, or at least I understand him, that she is so attached to the whales that it would be very hard for her to actually let them go. And we do actually get a comment in here. She's the one who suggested freeing them. Probably because a comment was made before that they are still growing. They don't know what the maximum size is for a humpback, and they're running out of room, so freeing them would be best. But there's also there's a whole no whale born in captivity has ever survived, I think is said later on in the movie. So it is best, but she also knows it's very hard and they are going to be in danger. But there's also this line, because he's trying to basically be that, Gil, they aren't, or Jill, they aren't human beings. You keep looking for evidence that they're as smart as we are, blah, blah, blah. Which very much like what's in the movie. I don't know about you, but my compassion for someone isn't limited to my estimate of their intelligence. Again, in the movie, she glared at him angrily. Maybe they didn't paint the Mona Lisa or invent the dirt bike. I mean, not necessarily to that. Well, okay, no, painting the Mona Lisa, I would consider that as something falling under, broadly speaking, superintelligence, which is the production of art. I mean, it is, especially when it is something not so directly practical. There's some ancient artwork, prehistoric artwork, where it's there might have been practical purposes for that. Whereas something like the Mona Lisa, but certainly plenty of other artwork that is more abstract. What is its purpose? Because somebody wanted a picture of this. That's it. Dirt bike, okay, yeah. But they didn't ravish the world either. Yeah, okay, that's fair. And they've never driven another species to extinction. How do we know that? I mean, we really don't. humans would be the only species that have any ability to be aware of other species going extinct. Because we have a history, we actually have the ability to record history. No other species has that capability. So it's actually very, very possible, very reasonable that humpback whales and whales in general have driven many other species to extinction. Most likely, probably other whales. Because, like, the humpback could have just outcompeted other whales that were eating the same food. That is entirely reasonable. But we would have no record of that. For one thing, it may have happened millions of years ago. For another thing, we're not whales. We don't have perfect monitoring of them. I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was in this chapter. It was also reference to an average of a species going extinct a day. At least that's what they were predicting for the 80s. Well, for the time that this is set, which is the 80s. And looked up, and apparently that is the estimate. But it's also one of those things, I kind of wonder how actually true that is. Because it can only ever be an estimate, only ever an approximation. Because we don't have a total number of species for the planet. They're all estimates, and it's just, okay, how many do you think are going extinct? So it's like, the number by its nature cannot be accurate. And also the number by its nature, species going extinct. That's a bad thing, isn't it? So it's very believable that somebody would bias the number because it makes the situation look worse, which means that they can get more grant money. It's not that I am intrinsically, naturally cynical, but that kind of shit really happens. And it's disturbing that it does really happen in ways that you might not want to know about. I think I mentioned one thing previously, and I'll mention it here again, but it might not have been in the Star Trek stuff though. At least not the trilogy. They once surveyed stem cell researchers, about whether or not they've committed academic fraud. So that would be falsifying data, setting aside certain data to arrive at certain conclusions, and I think even stealing data from other researchers, other projects, things like that. And a full third said yes. They asked people, hey, did you do something that arguably, if this were public knowledge, you would be fired from your position? And a third said yes. I once knew a guy that, while in the Navy, was like part of their medical corps, and they had a policy that when doing a physical and asking how much do you drink, whatever the number was that they were told, they would put down double. So how many of those researchers who said no do you think it was yes? They were just lying to cover themselves. Because they were also lying, initially with the academic fraud, because that was how they got grants. And that's exactly why the ones who said yes, that's exactly why. So they would publish first and get the grant money. I'm sorry, as I've said plenty of times before, there is no such thing as the ivory tower. It is a lie. It is a hoax, even. Cynicism is not the state you want to exist in, but you should appreciate cynicism and apply it, because many people do have greed as a motivation. Some will still be honest, some will not be, and you just basically need to understand that, what is the motivation, and work with it from there. There's also another aspect to, all these species going extinct. How many new species came into it, emerged at the same time? We don't know, and that's going to be harder to tell, because when a species first emerges, there's a better shot that it will be similar to other species, like the one it developed from. So it's going to be hard to distinguish it. So, yeah, whereas, that was the last of that species that just died out. We haven't seen any, it's like we don't see any more of those anywhere. Well, I guess that's gone. That's a lot easier for an already distinguished species to be observed dying versus a new species that's going to look very similar to another appearing. It's. So it is the idea that, oh, isn't terrible all this? It's like we don't have all the data. It's impossible to get all the data. And the positive side is something that, again, that's harder to calculate, harder to approximate accurately than the negative. But also, I put in here, and I know I'm just ranting. Sorry. But I also put in my notes another aspect of this that I'm trying to think the best way to put it. It's in a way cynical about postmodern environmentalism. I think that's how I put it before, which is the view, and this applies to many aspects, not just with animal stuff, but also the weather, that there seems to be this concept that exists of there being an ideal state of nature and we're not in it. So the idea that, you know, a species going extinct is wrong because, well, nature is supposed to be balanced, and so things should be in balance, and so things should not go extinct. It's like, no, species go extinct naturally all the time. That's completely normal. And nature, yes, is balanced, but part of that balance is death. Species die, new species emerge. A species dies because another was particularly successful. I mean, that's all part of it. It is balanced in that sense, but it seems like people want to ignore that aspect of balance. They want to ignore death as part of life and just say that no, what we have now, this is just wrong. It's like, no, it's not necessarily wrong. It's just not what you think it should be. Those are wildly different things. There is not a snapshot of nature that if we can get back to that, everything will be hunky-dory. Another way to put it, there's one thing that I do know some people struggle with, is we should not have an aversion to chaos, especially because chaos is ordered. At least when you are working with within the sciences. Chaos is in fact ordered. It does have patterns to it. It's just that these patterns are incredibly sensitive to initial conditions, incredibly sensitive to variables, which make them next to impossible to predict. But there still is a pattern there. That's why the weather, by its nature, is actually chaotic. It is incredibly sensitive to many things, but we can still make observations and then make predictions. We can still... those predictions are approximations. They're not perfect, but we can make them. But that is still chaos. Nothing wrong with chaos. Chaos is fine. But it does seem like people think that, oh, it's chaotic, that's a bad thing. It's like, no, that's actually how a lot of systems just naturally work. So, yeah, it's just... So I have to rant because postmodern environmentalism is incredibly ignorant, in my opinion. And in my experience, seeing some of the stuff. Because, yeah. It also goes back to the whole thing with the traveler. It's like, oh, the species died out, I must get there and do something. It's like, there's no reason to believe that the species didn't go extinct naturally. None at all. The traveler doing this is so beyond stupid. Because it's... What if you just had a planet where it's like, oh, the sun exploded. Or, oh, a meteor struck it. It's not going to go over there and wreck that planet? Just because, hey, I lost a song? It's like, it's really stupid. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, I do also put in my notes, I didn't highlight anything, that because of how Bob upset Jillian, I do wonder if her then desire to pick up Kirk and Spock when she sees them is... She can't yell at Bob. He is her boss, and he never gets mad, so it's not like it would even be satisfying. But seeing those two, she can find out a little bit more what's going on. She can feel that she's succeeding at something if she can help them figure out what's going on, maybe protect the whales if need be, maybe just learn why they did what they did. Whatever, that is going to be something that will give her some relief. There is a certain... Yeah, I guess catharsis is kind of the right word there. It's not always... I feel like catharsis is overused for what it actually is, so I might be using it wrong. But it is still, I can see that they can provide an emotional release for her that she can't have with Bob. So, yeah. But then we do get away from that to... Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, okay. So, starts with just Jillian and Bob. Then we get to we get to her, Spock, and Kirk later. But we get here where Chekhov and her arrive at Alameda, at the naval base. And her is a little paranoid because she's like, keep expecting him to arrive. It's like, and Pavel's like, nah, don't worry about it. I'm sure. And it's like the only reason why he appeared again was just coincidence. Or maybe he realized his mistake and wanted to help us. But, it wasn't necessary to do that. It's like, Chekhov, you shouldn't be this stupid. I mean, fine, it's just coincidence, but don't be like, he was embarrassed. Well, he realized he gave us incorrect directions. He was embarrassed. He has no earthly reason to feel suspicion. It's like, dude, you're over-rationalizing, and he shouldn't be that stupid. Remember, he is a full commander. Okay, he is not... He should not be naive anymore. He shouldn't be a child. So, yeah, this is... I don't like that. He's just being stupid. And this isn't a... He doesn't... like. Later on, in the movie, when he is confronted by the FBI, maybe it'll be Bond, there's an old gimmick that you see in The Great Escape. You also see in crap, I had it in my mind first even, and then it blanked, where a way to test somebody... Stargate SG-1, that's right. In, what was that, 1969? 1979? I think it was 69 was the name of the episode. Maybe not 69, but where they go back in time. Where you speak, like if you think somebody's Russian, you start speaking Russian to them to see if they reply in Russian. Because the idea is that even though they know they're supposed to be speaking whatever the local language is, if you start speaking to them in their own language, they will revert to speaking their native tongue. Chekhov falling for that? Yeah, that makes perfect sense that he would. There's no reason he wouldn't, because there's no reason he'd necessarily be prepared to stay in English. There's no reason he would suspect it as a trick. But this being like, nah, he's probably just embarrassed, thought he made a mistake. No. That's just stupid. They find the Enterprise, and there is something here that I do like when they see that it is the Enterprise. Both of them, but we're primarily getting Uhura's perspective here, are in awe of it, and I like this. In Uhura's time, structures much larger than this were commonplace, but they were built in space without the restrictions of gravity and air and water pressure. This century's Enterprise existed in spite of those factors. That basically they are a greater marvel of engineering. But I do want to just say one thing. I don't remember if I've said this before, but I'm definitely going to say it now. It annoys me. I get if it's just stated as canon, but it annoys me when people try to state that it is unreasonable. That there is no way you could possibly have a starship built on a planet. They are a spacecraft. They would have to be built in space. Because that's where we built the space shuttle. That's where we built Saturn V, Mercury, Gemini. All cars are built on the road. All boats are built in the ocean. Airplanes are built in the air, of course. I mean, you build where it's most convenient, and then you move it to where it needs to be. It's like even the Enterprise here, the USS Enterprise, would have been built in a dry dock. Then I'm not sure if it would be you then flood the dry dock so it would be lifted up and it goes out, or if it would in fact be launched into the ocean. But it's either way, they're built on land. Fine, if it is canon in Star Trek, all starships are built in space. Fine. I think it's stupid because that is so much difficult to do such work in vacuum of space and with microgravity, I think I think that is stupid. I think it's perfectly reasonable to have them built on land and then other ships haul it up. I'm not saying that the Enterprise needs the ability to land and take off, to take off from and potentially then land again on a planet. I'm not saying that, okay? Voyager, the Intrepid class can. I'm not saying that the Constitution class can. I don't care. That's irrelevant. You can have ships that will pick it up and move it up there. There's nothing wrong with that. It would be like a tugboat, okay? I see nothing wrong with that. But it is just, I have to rant about that because, as I said, it's fine if you want to say, no, canon is what we see here. But they were built in space. Like, it's fine. Okay. Accept that as canon, move on. But when I do see some people where it's like, no, why would you ever think they would be built there? It's like, yes, because airplanes are built in the air. And boats are built in the sea. It's like, that's not at all what we do. Why do you think that just because it's a spaceship, that means it has to be built in space? That's not how it works. I just want to check. Okay, there's the next note. Decent size highlight here. Which I do also have a problem with, but we'll get to that. I mean, yeah. You ignore everything about Earth and about humans that you possibly can, yet it was you who recognized the Humpback song. Why you, Spock? Kirk and Spock, well, Kirk is kind of annoyed by Spock at the moment, which is fair, but, you know. Still, we get the explanation for why he knew it. I believe, Spock hesitated. I remember, I've told you that I taught myself to swim many years ago on Earth. Once I swam too far. The current caught me. Its force overcame me. When I had nearly lost myself, I felt a creature nearby. I expected a shark to tear my flesh, to kill me. But when the creature touched me, I felt the warmth of a mammal, and I discerned a young and bright intelligence. A dolphin swam beneath me. She supported me and helped me toward shore. One reads of such behavior in mythology, but I have never given the tales credence. We communicated. Spock reached down and touched a dusty, nondescript plant by the side of the road. This is actually what's been annoying Kirk. This species, too, is extinct in our time. Like the great whales, but the smaller cetaceans, the dolphins, survive. I don't know why you would necessarily believe that, but I guess it depends what do you consider a great whale, but anyhow. They preserve the memories of their vanished cousins. That's just stupid. They remember, they tell stories. In pictures created of sound, the songs of the humpback. They hold themselves aloof from humans, and who can blame them? But I am not a human being, not entirely. The dolphin sang to me. You want me to believe that a dolphin can, centuries after humpbacks die, that a dolphin can recreate the sounds of a humpback, a wildly different animal whose organs involved with making the sounds are likely radically different as well. And not only that, but that the dolphins have been sharing stories of these songs for generations, for literal centuries, so that then it can sing to Spock accurately enough for him to recognize actual whale song. I'm sorry, but this is getting to the point of you should read Shakespeare in the original Dolphin. It just... It's really stupid. And also, why would we necessarily believe that dolphins would survive? It is a fair point. It's like there would probably be some whales that would survive as well. Why would the dolphins fail? And there's also the whole, hey, You know, that's true. That is true. I did not even realize that. I should put that in my notes. I should put that in my notes. Damn, I'm starting to hate this chapter, and I didn't mean to. The dolphins know whale songs. We don't need to humpback whales. Hey, dolphin, sing for the traveler. Sing before you die, because they will die too. I'm sorry, but that is true. You've just broken the need for the story. The whole motivation of the story is erased by this. I am sorry, Vonda. You fucked up here. I'm sorry. It's just you literally destroyed the whole point of the story. I'm even marking this as for the. When Spock talks about learning whale songs from a dolphin that rescued him, the dolphin recreated the song well enough for Spock to recognize the real sound that the traveler was creating. Well, the real whale song that the traveler was creating, which is also a problem, because why would it have been creating the whale song at that time? It was, I mean, unless we're just to assume that the traveler has ended up spreading a common language that the whale song is one example of across the galaxy, which this means the dolphins exist in the future and with the capacity to recreate the very songs the crew has gone, well, the very songs the traveler wants to hear, and the crew has gone back in time to get whales to answer with. The argument the dolphins do not know the language does not hold up because, well, hang on, let me read it again. Okay. Yeah, it's still. Because their language is possibly similar, and it also is. There's no reason to believe the traveler would not be responsive to their attempt to answer it. So yeah, okay. Technically, yeah, maybe it is that the dolphins don't actually know the meaning of the whale song. Fine. But what the hell? We're already in this zone of, well, animals, they have language. They can communicate with each other. well, we'll just believe that basically all animals have this capability, but humans lost it. Because that's also part of some of the postmodern bullshit, postmodern environmental bullshit, where there in the idea that in all these animal species they can just talk with each other. It's like, no, that's not how it works. I mean, it's a bad example because it's fiction, but it's you see something like that in Pokemon, where Meowth learned to speak English and so can talk with humans, but is also able to communicate with every single Pokemon, understands what they're all saying, even though they're completely different species that he's never encountered with before, and every Pokemon only repeats their name or some form of their name. So yeah, it's just why would we believe they actually have a common language? It's yeah, but no, there are in fiction you do see some of that represented where it's like all animals just know how to communicate with each other except for humans. So yeah, it's but even that it still is. Why would they not just answer the traveler anyway? And even if it isn't right, the traveler should still be responsive and be like, "Oh, I have a new friend here." I mean, it undermines the story. This undermines the motivation for the story itself. That oh man. I'm just trying to decide. I think that depending on how much I remember it, and how much weight I want to give it, that alone, and other things, but that alone would definitely push it down. So in Search for Spock, the issues that I have with the story there, I still gave it a 3. Still categorized it as just a straight recommendation because the issues I had with it, none of them, they were typically just side story kind of stuff, so none of them were quite elevated enough to pose a significant problem on their own. This, however, none of them attacked the motivation for the story. This does. This does, in fact, attack the motivation for the story, such that I don't think I could ever give it a 3. Even if the rest of the book is perfect, I don't think I could do that. That it would have to be, at best, a weak recommendation where it's like, yeah, I enjoyed reading it, but it's got some flaws in there that we got to talk about. All right? I mean, it's... Or it could end up becoming a 1, which is flavored towards recommended, but is a failure to recommend. I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. There's still plenty more to go. So now we get to Jillian meeting up with Kirk and Spock, and Kirk trying to explain why Spock is the way he is. Look, back in the 60s, he was in Berkeley, the free speech movement and all that. I think, well, he did too much LDS. LDS? Are you dyslexic on top of everything else? She sighed. A burnt-out druggie and his keeper. She felt sorry for them now that she was sure they posed no danger to the humpbacks. I kind of wonder why a reference to dyslexia isn't in the movie. Now, it could be, and it's unfortunate if this is the case, it could be that dyslexia, and that's assuming that this wasn't just Vonda thought of it and wanted to put in there as a part of what she says. I mean, it could be just, we don't need it, just the joke of he got it wrong, and she just goes, all right, hop in. And it's like, that could be enough. But it could also have been intentional, because unfortunately, dyslexia is one of those things that people have attached a stigma. I started to have a stutter there. That some people have a stigma attached to it, which is horrible. And there's a lot of things that there's stigma on where it's like they really shouldn't be. Like epilepsy is another. But yeah, dyslexia, no, there shouldn't be a stigma there. And I'm trying to think, which would I consider worse? A stigma on dyslexia or a stigma on epilepsy? I think it might be dyslexia, because definitely with dyslexia, that is, because it's also technically in some ways a learning disability, the stigma on it can lead to people trying to hide the fact they have that, and then they never get what help they need, so they can find solutions to still be able to learn via reading. Whereas epilepsy, I don't know how much with that fear of it prevents you from getting help with it. I don't know if there is as much a practical detriment, but it still is. There shouldn't be a stigma to that. And I've never witnessed an epileptic seizure, but I have known at least one person with epilepsy. And I have to say at least, because it's actually not as uncommon as some people may think. It's just what triggers an epileptic seizure, if known, can sometimes be rare. It can be managed, certainly, and there are drugs to help treat it as well. So, yeah. But dyslexia also, I'm pretty sure I do know at least one person with that, and it's... Fortunately, I don't have it. That would be very annoying for how much I do enjoy reading and writing, but... yeah. But the point being, I could believe that they didn't want to put a dyslexia joke in there because, oh no, we can't. It's like... Yeah. It's that kind of oversensitivity is not helping. I should also acknowledge one other thing with some of that. I have known a lot of people in my life with various things attached to them that some would consider stigmatized. To me, yeah, they're different. They're also still normal. I mean, it's like they are still just people. Different, but still just people. So, yeah, it's always unfortunate to me when I see people reacting negatively to any of that, because it's like you clearly just don't have enough exposure. I mean, it's kind of like back in Wrath of Khan, Saavik being concerned that if she works with Peter, if she teaches Peter, that she would become upset because he had such a happy childhood while hers was so bad, and she was afraid she'd be resentful of him. But then when she actually does get to know him, finds that no, it made her feel better because it meant that hers was the aberration, his was the normal. And that gives her some comfort. I kind of see it like that, where you've got people out there that are just so afraid of it, and it's like, no, just get to know them, and you'll see it's fine. Or where it is they do have an experience with it, but it's an especially bad version of it. So they think that that's what everything is like. It's like, no, it's not. Still go get to know it. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on. I am glad we don't have one line that is in the movie that I always found stupid. Where she says, because Jillian brings up the whole, he said, well, here, because the line is in here. Admiral, if we were to assume these whales are ours to do with as we please, we would be as guilty as those who caused, past tense, their extinction. She does not go on to say, I have a photographic memory, I see words. That's not how photographic memory works. Okay, and in fact, I'm not even certain that that somebody with a photographic memory, or rather an eidetic memory, would have perfect recall of sounds, of people talking. Now, I did look it up. There are such things as audiographic memory, terms, audiographic memory and verbatim memory, but also hyperthymesia, which that might be something different. So there was a concept, and I actually use it in one of my books, though to very much the nth degree. There's the concept of perfect recall for memory. A photographic memory is not perfect recall. There is legit perfect recall out there, and it is horrible. Like what I've seen, when I've seen that talked about, and I mean full-on perfect memory, it is terrible for those people because everything they've ever experienced is immediately on call for their memory. So that can be like if they are in a relationship and it goes very bad. So there's a lot of negative emotions with that. If they are then in a new relationship and something the person says or does reminds them of that bad relationship, it all comes back. It all comes back. So it can be really hard on them. But that's not what a photographic memory is. But it did seem, from what I was seeing from the description, that's hyperthymesia is such perfect memory. But it's on a wide range. It's not just a spectrum. going from ability to recall, it would also be the types, because as I'm pretty sure photographic memory with the visuals coming to you, that's one thing, but being able to memorize instantly, having perfect recall for things you've heard, that would be something else, like this audiographic memory or verbatim memory. So that is potentially something else. But it does also remind me, I once asked, because I met somebody with photographic memory, and there's just this question that I had in my mind for a while, and it's like, I'm going to ask, because I can. Because especially with the description of photographic memory, that you just see something and you can remember it, I asked this question. If you were to look at a page in a book, not necessarily read it, but look at it, could you then remember what it said? So you didn't actually read through it, but you still looked at it. And she said, if she read it, yes, she could recall it all perfectly. That wouldn't be a problem. But without reading it, still having looked at it though, she said she'd still be able to, but she'd have to focus on it. So that it wouldn't be so easy. It's like, I found that very interesting. Because it is an interesting question of is it that you have to actively consume, actively ingest what is on the page, or can you just observe the page and then recall the page long enough? That I found it very interesting. And that very possibly does vary between people with photographic memories, with eidetic memories, but yeah. But still, it's not I see words. I have photographic memory, I see words. Yeah. Another thing that is different from the movie here, and is unfortunate, I think the movie does better here, where Kirk promises no dipshit with what they want to do with the whales. That's something anyway, she said, or I'd have let you off right here. Gracie is pregnant, Spock said. There's no description of a pause here, whereas in the movie there is. So there's a pause. I was actually kind of hoping, as approaching this moment, that there would be some explanation for why he felt it necessary to say that. It doesn't contribute anything to the conversation. It isn't prompted. It's just, Gracie is pregnant. It's like, what? Spock, why? Anyway, moving on, we get to, I think this is where, yeah, okay. Now we're with Bones, Scotty, and Sulu. Sulu's off doing his own thing, which, for whatever reason, the plastics company just has a Huey. I always kind of wondered where he got that from, but no, apparently it's just the company owns it and uses it for transporting stuff. Maybe that's a common thing. I don't know. I just would think that it would always be easier, safer, more reliable to put the acrylic on a truck, take it to the place, and even if it is you need to take it up, you would either use a crane that's going to be a hell of a lot more stable and reliable and safer and more powerful than a Huey, or maybe it is you need to use the Huey, but you'd still use it there, so there's less time in the air, so again, it's safer. Plus, it would also save on fuel, because then you're not hauling that heavy thing all the distance. But anyway, we do get a piece of clarity here in a little bit. So yeah, let me actually cover this first. In the manager's office, Dr. Nichols, that's the guy's name, peered at the screen of his small computer. He was middle-aged and balding, wearing glasses, and a rumpled cardigan sweater. I don't have one of those. He used, and I'm not quite middle-aged either, but still, he used a fist-sized mechanical box with a button on top to flip through the plant schedule. Each click of the button put a new page on the screen. When he moved the box across the desktop, a pointer on the computer screen moved on an identical path. Nichols frowned with perplexity. So Bones is in there, and he's trying to sell the whole, we were scheduled on a tour here. So Bones is seeing him use the mouse, so later, that's why when Scotty's like, computer, hello, computer, that's why Bones is like, here, he knows what a mouse is, he just, Scotty doesn't know and still goes, hello, computer, he still does that, but, because Scotty doesn't know, but that's why Bones does it. It's not just a, oh, there's something here, why don't you say, he saw it being used before, so that little bit of explanation there. not sure how neat it really is. But yeah, we then here get the highlight. Sulu approached the plastic company's big Huey entranced. And yeah, they use it to move merchandise, and it's just that does seem odd. But he does go up with the pilot there, who is like, if anybody, because Sulu's looking at it, and pilot is like, if anybody asked, I didn't do this. And Sulu's like, if anybody asked, I never got in the thing. I never got in the Huey. So that's how he does get some time on it. Okay, so now coming back to McCoy managed to con the guy to getting a tour. He also almost insulted the guy because McCoy was trying to suggest that part of the reason why that it isn't in the schedule was that, academics, how they are. They say, yes, I used to be one. Bones didn't interpret that quite as I'm sure Nichols meant it, or rather Vonda meant it, that, yes, I know that I know the mistakes, the kind of things, not McCoy schedule. I got that, not a problem. Or just he remembered the wrong date. Don't worry about it. Bones like, oh, he has to change tactics. But anyway. The engineers, Nichols, sharp and ambitious intelligence chafed within the bureaucracy of management. I put in a transfer back to research, Nichols said. Upper management never understands when you want to go back to what you're best at doing. I, Scott said, recalling all the time Starfleet had tried to promote him out of engineering. 'Tis true. At least that does confirm what I'd said previously, that Scotty technically should be old enough and experienced enough to have a command. He doesn't want it. But it is also one of those things in Starfleet, how much of captain is rank versus how much of captain is center seat command. Because no, I would not want Scotty in command of a ship. That's not what his strengths are. He can do it, but that's not what he's meant to be. But I guess another way to put it is, would there be a grade of commander such that the pay and such, the compensation, whatever it would be equal to that of some captains, but it just wouldn't have the duties and responsibilities of the captain rank? Don't know. Anyway. But still, they're kind of bonding here. But it's also, as they're talking, it's like, Professor Scott, 'tis too formal. Call me Montgomery if you would. Okay. Sure, yeah, and you can do me the same favor. Call me Mark. Very well, Mark. Not Marcus. Ye are Marcus Nichols? He grabbed Nichols' hand and pumped it. I'm very glad to meet ye. The work you've done, the inventions, and Nichols and Bones like, stop this. You can't tell him anything. And Nichols is also really confused by this, and it's like, I've only got 2 patents, and if you heard about them in Edinburgh, it's like, that's surprising. So basically what we get to here, yeah, we do have a highlight here for the stuff with the computer. But we get something here that is actually, it does help explain a lot about what's going on. Because I always thought in the movie, he showed him the formula for transparent aluminum, and that's then what he somehow got to manufacture quickly, and that's what they're using. No, he is using the 6-inch thick acrylic on the bird of prey for the tank. Hang on, is it here? Okay, so I'm skipping a highlight. Why are you offering it to me? Nichols is asking this. Because we need something you have. Such as what? My firstborn child, my soul? Scott chuckled. Nay, acrylic sheets. Large ones. Acrylic epoxy. The loan of transportation. What you're asking for is worth a couple of $1,000s at most. What you're offering in return is worth, if it's true, a whole lot more. As well as recognition, respect. But you see, Mark, we don't have a couple $1,000s, and we need acrylic sheets desperately. So they're actually using the formula to barter with him to get this stuff. But in the movie, there's the whole, how do you know he didn't invent this stuff? And Bones is like, yeah. No, he did. Scotty, McCoy said, if we give him the formula, Nichols has gone outside so they can talk privately. If you give him the formula, we'll be altering the future. How do you know he didn't invent the process? Scott said. But, Dr. McCoy, do you understand? He did invent it. Have you never heard his name? I'm a doctor, not a historian, McCoy growled. He had gone into this masquerade willingly, but now he found himself possessed with the need to make a few changes in the to make as few changes in the past as he could. The intensity of Jim Kirk's argument for their actions warred with another alien impulse. "'Tisn't necessary to be a historian to know a Marcus Nichols. Why, 'twould be as if you'd never heard of Pasteur, who, Yallow, Carnegie. Not sure about that name. Nay, well, never you mind. The point is, Nichols did invent transparent aluminum, and that was only the beginning of his achievements. 'Tis all right that we give the formula to him. Perhaps 'tis essential." McCoy looked at him with his head cocked in a familiar yet very un-McCoyish way. So it goes on to explain that, yeah, it's possible he develops this transparent aluminum later, but it might also be, no, we're here to give it to him. And it will take years for him to actually figure out how to, from the formula, start manufacturing it. But that, and also he does have a background in metallurgy, so he legitimately could just develop this naturally. But it's also, just by the process that Scotty shows him, he does figure out other inventions from that. So it really is they might be starting this whole thing, or they are in fact just setting him up for something he will already naturally achieve. It is one of those funny things with time travel, how much of it ends up being a loop that you're making versus are they just accelerating things. But yeah, anyway, the main thing to me though is that yes, they are in fact not as significantly impacting the future, the past, as might be with this. It isn't just how do you know he didn't invent the stuff? Yeah. No, he did. Scotty knows that. But also that, yeah, it's just a bartering tool, which is not clear to me in the movie, but does it need to be? Not really. I do feel that it would be nice to make it clear that these two are not just deciding to manipulate the past, but that it is how do you know he didn't invent the stuff? Huh? He did. Bones. He does. He does, in fact, invent it. That is the inventor of transparent aluminum over there. It's like, that would have been nice. Something to reinforce that, no, we're actually not messing with the past like that. So, anyway. Next up, Chapter 9. Okay, and this is Jillian's Land Rover wound through Golden Gate Park along Kennedy Drive. So it is just they're going to drop off Spock. And then we get to have all that fun. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't fully know what I want to make of this chapter, but man, once that occurred to me about the dolphins, I am not super happy about that. I really am not. To help put that in perspective, if I were reading a book of mine and realized I made a mistake like that, I am rewriting, if necessary, entire chapters, because I know I cannot have that. I shouldn't need to do that. I mean, it could have... Yeah, an easy answer would have just been, I encountered the dolphin, and some of the noises it made, and just made me interested in all the aquatic mammals of Earth. And so while I was researching them, I encountered the songs of extinct whales as well. That would have been fine. Could have done that. Perfect solution, because it's not setting up that, hey, the knowledge in aquatic mammals exists at the time of the Traveler. They're still gone. That's all lost. Still need to do the mission. Still need to do this whole story. Can still do... So it's an easy fix. But it should be fixed. It should have been fixed. And it's... I legitimately do wonder with professional authors like Vonda and some of the others that I've read through, how much editing do these stories get? Because, I mean, that is not a small issue. It's an easy to fix one, but it's not a small one. Because, as I said, it undermines the motivation for the whole of the story. So you need to solve it. But is it something like Vonda wrote it, never realized that, oh yeah, this doesn't work? The whole money thing also, do they use money? Do they not use money in the future? Which, in theory, the next chapter, we may get the line from Kirk, which Scotty, every time he's seen Scotty, he's never had any sense about money, so Scotty has experience with money. Bones is trying to use money to charter a ship in the prior book. I mean, it's... How much of it is Vonda potentially making the mistake and never catching it? I assume that professional authors, they do reread their own work and edit it before it goes to an editor or along with an editor looking at it. How many of these editors are looking closely enough at this to realize, hey, you're making mistakes here. This doesn't work. You have to fix this. I don't know. And plus, technically, literary agents can also be involved in the editing process. So, I mean, it's just one thing that I've seen, and this is for modern editing. That my understanding is some of the editors will basically get people to rewrite their books to satisfy this trend or that trend, this bias or that bias, which it does make me glad that I am not a professional author in that sense. Because I'd tell them to fuck off. I write my stories the way the stories want to be written, and I believe that is how other people should do it as well. Hopefully at some point there will be editors that, and well, it's also on the publisher, and well, the editors for some publishers should specify that as well, that try to push certain things, and it's like, let's hope that dies away one way or another, whether that's the publishing houses fall away and it's smaller companies that fill the void, smaller publishers that fill the void with editors that are more so interested in just telling the story well and effectively, not telling the story they want told. But it still is... Some of these mistakes, they shouldn't be in there. And I don't know what to make of it. I really, really don't. Because I catch this stuff in my own writing, and I try to fix it. Am I weird? Is it because I also am my own editor that I don't know. I do not know, and it's just I don't know what to make of it other than apparently I'm able in some instances to do better than them. Now, true, I'm also seeing it after they've done all their work. So I don't know what they did catch that I'm never seeing. That's fair. And trust me, I've done QA in software and including video games long enough. I know what that's like. Yeah, you think you found a bug in this game. You think you have? Yeah, you're not even seeing 1% of the stuff I've seen. Then at the same time, I have, as a consumer, actually found bugs in games where it's like, where I let the developers know, and sometimes I'll go back and they're like, oh shit. That's happened, I think, mainly just one time, but it was a full-on oh shit moment. But that has happened to me. Typically, when I find a bug that is well, not necessarily serious, some of them though they'll make me laugh, and I'll report them to the developer, and I'll be sure it's like, and here's the video of it because I just think it's funny. I was like, yeah, you need to fix it too, but it's like, don't worry about it. I won't hold it against the game. I think it's funny. And here you go. All right. See you next time for Chapter 9.